Welcome. I'm Jessica Tejan, and this is the Evolving to Exceptional podcast, where we talk about reaching peak performance in our workplaces, homes, and communities so that we can live our best life possible, an exceptional life. And then once a person is seen, witnessed, and felt within it, then you really can move to action, empathy and action. Now we can get into, okay, what's the next best thing that we can do in this situation? How can we move forward in the most creative, compassionate, and courageous way? And people are no longer stuck in it. They can move through it, and you get them back to being productive, happy, high-performing people again.
Yes, it's so important when you're showing up as a coach. It's so much easier to help that person move through that. You're showing up, you're acknowledging it, and then you're figuring out how to move past it. Like you said, that's critical to get past that emotion so we can have a productive conversation and you can return to your best self. That's what we want for everybody.
And I think, as you say, coach again, it makes me think, I think sometimes there is a fear of leaders that they don't have the skill sets, that they don't know enough of how to do the thing. And it's interesting, I've been trained in multiple different coaching modalities and worked with the International Coaching Federation, and I've worked in this area. And really good coaches, it is a very sophisticated skill set. Like, really good coaches are amazing what they can help you do. And so one of the things I like to say, as not in lieu of coaching, but as an alternative, an invitation for leaders, is to think of it as, how can you partner with your people? And so if you don't feel comfortable being that coach, like you don't feel that you're going to be able to be fully present and fully focused on the person in everything because of responsibilities and things that are going on, think of it like you're their partner and you're coming together to figure things out together. And you don't have to have all the answers. You don't even need to have the answer. But together, you ask the questions and you work together to get to the best outcome or result. And if you feel like you want to develop coaching skill sets, absolutely, that's powerful, and do it. But anybody, I don't care who you are, anybody can develop the skill of how to be a partner to another human being. And in fact, we kind of all need to, because we have partners at home. We have our spouses, our kids, our friends, our relationships. And so really we need to figure out, how do we engage in ways that create positive outcomes from every conversation and relationship that we have.
Yeah, I love that idea of partnering, because that is what you're doing. We're all in this together, and we're going to learn together, and we're going to make mistakes together. When we make mistakes, we see those as learning opportunities. Well, can we learn from this so that doesn't happen again? And so that we have that knowledge and that data point next time we do this, we're going to do it even better. But partnership is key, and it's not as daunting as being a coach. I can guess that when you are showing up as a partner, you're probably asking questions and leaning into curiosity. Leaning into curiosity is something that I think everyone can do by, asking more and talking less when you're partnering with someone. And you're showing up in that way for that person to help solve it for themselves too. As a partner, we're not always giving them all the answers, because we don't have them all. We should also want them to be able to solve it for themselves, because we should see them as powerful too, as having the knowledge to be able to solve it for themselves. And maybe I just need to ask some different questions so they can solve it for themselves and guide them along the way. Like, there's nothing that says you can't be there to guide them along the way and offer insight through that partnership as well.
I think one of the things that I've learned in coaching lots of leaders and being in this space is that actually, and I mean, just being a human, I think this is true and anybody will relate to it. The biggest lessons in my life are the ones that come from me. They're the ones that maybe someone else inspired or gave me insight or something to think about. But the true learning is in my reflection and my integration and my insight of that. And what's really going on, and I always go back to the science of it, is that in our body, we have these neural connections between our different brains and they form throughout our lives. And until we have the insight in our brain, until we make the connections, that behavior, that thought, that feeling doesn't get reinforced. So just because we read something, just because we learned about something, our brains will be clearing out things that we're not using. But when it integrates, when it connects with something we've already thought before, or we've already sensed before, or we had a feeling about, when it emerges from our own inner wisdom, that is when outcomes are lasting. That is when results stick and behaviors change and things actually change. But I've been through coaching leaders and managers for years before I developed some of these techniques where they knew, like I could keep telling them till I was blue in the face. They already knew the information. That wasn't going to change what was happening. It wasn't a not knowing issue.
Right. Yes, I've experienced that as well. And I go back to the fact we talked about self-reflection, and you just mentioned that. Like, one tool that I found helpful is the after action review. Works great with human interactions. What happened? What did I expect to happen? What went well and why? And what can I improve upon and how? Those are questions you can use as self-reflection anytime you have an interaction with someone that didn't go quite like you thought it should. And that gives you great insight into how you showed up and what you could do differently next time. That tool is also great for teams after any project, to ask the whole team what went well, what did we expect to happen, what actually happened, and what can we improve upon and how. And that creates an action plan for you to think about and really set into motion the next time you have this project, or to think about more the next time you have this interaction with someone. It's only going to make you a better person and the team better as a whole too, when you take time to self-reflect.
And I would add another maybe layer dimension to that. And what we use that can be really helpful is checking in with your head, heart, and your gut intelligence. What did I really think about that? How did I truly feel about that result? How did I connect with other people around that result? Or what did I sense? What did I deeply need? Or what transpired there? What actions did I take? And why did I take those actions? And kind of connect in with the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors of your head, heart, and gut intelligence, and see what wisdom emerges from there, what insight and information comes. And, what I find when I do that is the most amazing learning really comes from your full intelligence being online and connecting in with all of them. And when you do it in a group, even more powerful, which is super interesting because you get people with different perspectives, right? Everybody views the world through their own lens, their own neural pathways that they've developed. And so when you get different people like, hey, what did we think about that? And what did we observe there? What happened there? Sometimes when we do that, we learn things we would never have learned otherwise if we didn't ask everybody in the room.
I agree. And you have to make sure that everyone in the room participates and that they feel comfortable doing so. I experienced a facilitator one time when we started meetings. He always asked everybody, where's your heart and where's your head right now? And we addressed that up front. We talked about it up front to make sure that we were aware of everything that was going on in people's head and heart right now. And it was helpful to put that out there so that everyone knew what everyone was at the moment. And it helped guide us through our conversation, and what may be something sensitive to someone, we still need to talk about it. So how do we approach that? But it was super helpful to understand where everyone's heart and head was at. And I think that's a great thing to do. Anytime you jump into a meeting with people, real quick, let's do a heart and head check. Where's your heart and where's your head? And just so you have an understanding truly as a facilitator too, where the audience is at, where your team's at.
Yeah. I always think those are good connection points too. And I've often used like the 5-finger check-in, like describe how you are right now in 5 words, or 7 words if you want to give people a little bit more, but as a way to kind of create that initial connection.
Yes, absolutely. And any of those things you can do is only going to make that connection stronger with your team. We've got to be more human centric in today's world.
Well, and I think one other thing that might be worth addressing is when the inevitable ruptures occur. So I talked about earlier that I think some leaders are fearful of how far to go, or that they might say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing if they engage in this way, in this deeper, more impactful way. And one of the things that I think we don't spend enough time on is how to repair after a rupture, how to repair after something went wrong. You got activated and got frustrated with one of your team members, and your voice raised and you responded in a way you're not happy with, or something along those lines. And we don't spend enough time in how do we come back from that, and how do we repair those situations, because actually it's in the repair. Rupture is inevitable, it happens all the time. It's in how we repair it that is whether we reinforce and create more trust, or whether we create more friction or more break in the relationship. And so spending the time on how do I come back from a situation where I've caused a disconnect, I think is really important.
Yeah. I learned a very important aspect that people need to be aware of is the first 72 hours after you receive a response or you give a response to someone, your cognitive state and emotional state is influenced big time because all these chemicals are flooding your brain. So you have to be aware that your cognitive state and your emotional state are inhibited in that first 72 hours. Don't take any knee jerk reactions. Instead, take time to reflect and really pay attention to self care so that you can get to a balanced mindset. It might be a full 72 hours for some people. Some people, it might take 48. But you've got to make sure you are taking care of yourself and reflecting so you can get to a balanced mindset and then determine what your next step might be. And I sure hope it is connecting with that person and apologizing. I apologize for my behavior. I was frustrated and I let that get the best of me.
Yeah.
What can I do to support you? And how can we move forward in a productive way? Like you have to be vulnerable to be able to say, I apologize. We should all be vulnerable in that way because we're human and we all make mistakes. And we have to be able to apologize to people first and foremost. I think that goes a long way to help that person be seen and heard.
And I think what you're hitting on there that's important around like the 72 hours or 48 hours, it's really about the regulation of your nervous system. And when I say that, what I mean is that when we're in an activated state, so I would call that sympathetic or like a fight flight state, right? I'm going to fight back. I'm angry. I'm upset. I'm feeling like an energy of high movement. That's a fight flight sympathetic response. Or you might feel more of a freeze or fawn shutdown response, where I don't want to deal with this, or I want to make it go away. I want to fix it all. Either way, your system has shifted out of what we call a balanced state, which is calm, clear, connected, coherent. It's the state of compassion, creativity, courage. It's that state of being present, aware, and clear in your thinking and your feeling and your sensing. And one of the things I teach when I teach conversations, how to have these really conscious and effective conversations, is nervous system regulation and noticing the state of your body. Because you're totally right, Kelly, when you say when your nervous system is in survival, in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, it does not care about the wisest thing. It does not care about building new neural pathways. It's not learning anything. It is narrowly focused. Literally, your vision is narrowed. You can't see as many facts and information and things so that you can survive, because it's a programming to help you outrun and survive a predator, right? And so when we're in survival, we're totally cut off from those neural connections from our highest, wisest self. And when we can connect back into that, actually, that's where, and we've all experienced it, right? Where there's been a rupture, some type of argument, some type of something that's happened. And when we've had a chance to get some distance, to take a walk, to bring ourselves back into balance, we go, Oh yeah, this was my part. This was their, like then we're able to be back into that rational, coherent self. And so that's how I always like to have people think about is what is the state of your body right now? And only engage in the activities that are appropriate for the state in which your body is in right now.
Yeah, very true. And I just don't think we pay enough attention to the state of our body. And we tend to make knee jerk reactions that then put us deeper and deeper into that hole. And we have to dig ourselves out of it. And it's never fun. If we just stop and pause and reflect on what we're feeling, what we're thinking, and get to a balanced state, it's going to be easier to repair that relationship because you won't have such a deep hole to dig out of.
Yeah, and I always love to use kids as an example because they're like the most like innocent examples, but it's like that with kids. Like if they are in a dysregulated meltdown state, you can't rationalize with them to save your life. Like you could offer them a ice cream the size of Mount Rushmore and they wouldn't take it if it's not the thing that they're focused on or they're hyper fixated on. I always love it because I try it, right? Like, how can I bribe them out of this? Or how can I get them to do this thing? But it never works. And the only thing that works is to get them back into coherence. And so I just did it this past weekend where I had a whole family regulation session where we all went to the regulation station. We did 2.5 minutes. Everybody's going to balance breathe together. Sometimes we do some somatic like tapping in that too to help release some of the stress. But we're done. We're not doing another thing until everyone's in a regulated state because we're not making good choices and we're not able to navigate these interactions in a healthy way. And it's always surprising to me, even though I know it's going to happen, how quickly you can turn a child around when you regulate them and you get them into a place of balance. And then suddenly they are just so wise. And now they have the answer that you were trying to get them to come to for the longest time. And now they can do it because they're back in their body and they're back in that balanced state. And I just love to use kids because they are just such like blatant examples of it. But we are really just big kids. Like our bodies are still wired that same way. And we may be a little bit more mature in our meltdowns. It might look a little different than the tantrum where they're screaming and crying on the floor, but we're still having an adult version of that with our bodies reacting to the situations that we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to share your wisdom on the regulation with kids, with all the parents in the world, because I think that can benefit so many people.
Well, it's huge. And so I'll use that plug 2.5 minutes, balance breathing, set a timer, let your kids know we're not moving forward. And you know what? The truth is, the same thing works in the boardroom. And I've had clients of mine who have implemented when things get heated, we're going to stop and everybody's going to take a breath and we're going to walk around the room. And until everybody's back into a coherent state, we're not going to keep going because it's not going to end up getting us where we want to be. And I think that what organizations and leaders would find is if we did this more, if we took the 2.5 minutes, which by the way is not very long, like we're not talking about you have to take 30 minutes to go work out or like take 2.5 minutes, get things back into a regulated state so that you can accomplish the objective you're trying to accomplish.
Yes, it's critical. And I think that against the status quo, we have to be brave enough to suggest things like that and put them into practice so that people can experience the impact it can have on your meetings and the productivity of your meetings when you do that balance break. Like we have to get back to equal.
I think we could keep talking about this all day, Kelly. I love the topic, but I want to give you a chance to give our listeners any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you have about this or just in general.
You know, I think if we do try to move towards being a partner or being more coach like for our people, we transition from a manager of tasks to a developer of people. And ultimately, that's our job is to lead people and help them learn to lead themselves as well. And I think we have to see mistakes as learning opportunities. And if we're not learning, we're losing.
I love that. If we're not learning, we're losing. I couldn't agree more. And I think, Kelly, what's so interesting and what's so important is for leaders to recognize that their greatest asset is their own intelligence. And that if you don't know how to operate and utilize your intelligence to the fullness of your capability and capacity, then you're losing out. You are operating in ways that you could so significantly improve upon. So if you don't know how to listen to the messages of your body, if you don't know how to be really coherent, regulated, present, to connect into those neural connections in your body and use them to the fullness of their capability and capacity, then get that training, get that development, because it's going to be life-changing for you in your relationships, in your leadership, and in the choices and decisions that you make in your life. So, Kelly, thank you so much for coming. I'm so grateful you were able to join us today.
Yes, Jessica, thank you so much for the conversation and the opportunity to share some insight into what I've learned in my journey in the HR world and just being a human as well and leader of people. So thank you so much.
You are so welcome. And to all our listeners, just remember to always keep evolving, keep growing, keep rewiring those neural pathways so that you can live your best life, an exceptional life. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll be back again next week with another episode.